Okay, we're starting our third lesson here. We've already called syllables and pronunciation of the syllables. Now we've covered the Hebrew system of consonants and vowels. It's important to refine our ability to pronunciate the Hebrew words correctly. And to do so, it's going to be necessary for us to work on the issue of what we call syllabification. Syllabification is simply the process of dividing words into syllables and the basic sounds of each word. So, in most English dictionaries, entries are commonly syllabified to aid with pronunciation. Examples include biblical, we have bib, and then la, call, and then grammar, and then introduction. And some words have only one syllable, which they're called monosyllabic. They're one syllables. Therefore, they have no syllable divider like dog and cat. Um, in there. So in English, we syllabify words instinctively, but since we are not native speakers of Hebrew, we will not have the instincts needed to correctly to syllabify Hebrew words. For this reason, we have to rely on certain rules and principles to aid us in this process. Now, according to in Biblical Hebrew 3.2, the two rules of syllabification. In order to divide Hebrew words into syllables, you must begin with two simple rules. The first rule, and these are fairly simple here. Every syllable must begin with one consonant and have only one vowel. So in Hebrew, therefore, a syllable does not begin with a vowel. Of course, there's an exception, but that's a conjunction. But if you'll find in the Hebrew lexicon, there's no words that begin with a vowel. So the Hebrew word for word is davar, and it is syllabified or broken into syllables as da-var. Da-var. This is an example. It has two syllables, each beginning with a consonant. So you got dalet and kamet's the vowel. Next syllable is vet, a soft bet, kamet's and resh. And so these each have a consonant and a vowel, and this one's last syllable has a consonant, vowel, and a consonant. Those are syllables. So the first Hebrew rule is that every syllable must begin with one consonant and have only one vowel. You can't start a Hebrew syllable with a vowel. It has to start with a consonant. The second rule basically is there are only two types of syllables, open and closed. Open syllables end with a vowel, and closed syllables end with a consonant. These two types of syllables are present in the above example, davar. You got the dalet and the chametz, the consonant vowel. Then you have consonant vowel consonant. The first syllable da is open because it ends in a vowel. The second syllable var is closed because it ends in a consonant. And it's that simple. So basically, the two rules, Hebrew syllables have to start with a consonant and have one vowel. There's two types of syllables, open and closed, either a consonant vowel syllable or a consonant vowel consonant syllable, as we have in var. And that's basically the essence of this chapter. We're going to look at some other parts of the accents, Hebrew accents. Hebrew words are usually accented or stressed on the last syllable. What this means is that the force of pronunciation is usually given to the last syllable. Using davar as an example, the stress or the force of the pronunciation falls on the last syllable. Var. Da, var. Davar. Davar. Cultivating the ability to stress the last syllable in Hebrew words will be difficult for most of us since we typically stress the first syllable in English. You should also note that there are some Hebrew words that are not stressed on the last syllable, and we'll get into those in a moment. The stress on these words will be indicated by an accent mark over the stressed syllable. For example, in the Hebrew word book, we have the word sefer. Okay, sefer is broken up into two syllables. Say, with the samic and the sere, say, fair, the fe, the segol, and the resh. Say fair. You got safer, safer. Accent is put on the first syllable. This word happens to be stressed on the first syllable, and it's indicated by an accent mark over the samic, which you see right here. If a Hebrew word is stressed on the last syllable, however, no accent mark is used, and as a general rule, if the stress falls on any other syllable, it's indicated with an accent mark. So mainly just, go with it. Majority of the times, it's going to be on the last syllable, unless it's marked. Now let's break up these syllable classifications based upon the accents mark. And what we will do here is bring this up a little bit here. In Hebrew, syllables are classified by their proximity to the accent. So the accent syllable is actually called the tonic syllable. The accent syllable is called the tonic. And once again, using the example of davar, the syllable var is the tonic syllable because it is accented syllable. In the example sefer, the syllable say is the tonic syllable because it's the accented syllable. So we've learned that's the tonic syllable is the accented syllable. Now in the second syllable is a pretonic called a pretonic syllable. These syllables in the pretonic position occur before the tonic syllable. An example, davar, the syllable da is pretonic because it occurs before the tonic syllable. So remember, we're reading from right to left. Da is the first syllable, var is the second syllable. So going from the tonic syllable, which is the var, we go to the right. That is the pretonic syllable, da. The third syllable that we're going to learn is called the propretonic, syllable. The syllable occurring before the pretonic syllable is called the propretonic syllable. It's actually the syllable that's furthest away from the accented syllable. For example, when we have a plural for words, davar, the plural of word is words, devarim. The accent shifts down from var to im. Thus, the da is the propretonic. It becomes the furthest. It reduces down even further. It goes down from a kametz to a shava, devarim. And you can see how it's broken down into syllables, de, va, reem. Consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. So this is the de is the part, and the se here in sepharim is is called the propretonic syllable because they occur before the pretonic syllable. So this is propretonic, pretonic, and tonic. This is the accent syllable. So once the like for example in sefer, it's what they call a seglet noun. The accent's on the first syllable. But once it leaves the singular and goes into the plural, the accent shifts down to the far end, like normal Hebrew words, down to the end. That's the reason why the se is the propretonic syllable, because they occur before the pretonic syllable. So, simple enough. Again, the rules are Hebrew syllables have to start with a consonant and have one vowel. They can either be open or closed. That means they either have a consonant vowel as open or a consonant vowel consonant as closed. And it gives you an understanding of the classifications of these vowels. So basically the further away from the accented syllable, the shorter the vowel's going to be, or more reduced the vowel's going to be. All right, let's go ahead and go to Dagesh and syllabification. Now, you remember that in chapter 2, that the Begakafet consonants can take what they call a Dagesh lane. It's a hardening sound of the consonant, the bait, the gimel, the dalet, the kaf, the pei, and the tav. All consonants except for gutturals in resh can take a Dagesh forte. The Dagesh lane does not affect syllabification. However, the Dagesh forte does. Remember, that's the doubling Dagesh. That's the one that doubles the letter. So it's going to create another syllable. So, for example, one of the words for you, which is ata, it has a dagesh in there. And it's in a Begakafat letter, but it's not a lane because the lane can't follow a vowel. A vowel cannot precede um, a dagesh lane. So we know this is a dagesh forte. So inside the second letter of this word is a dagesh forte because the dagesh forte doubles the value of the consonant. It must be rendered twice in transliteration as ata. And so we'll note the doubling of the T right here. Since the tav is doubled, it functions both as the final consonant of the first syllable and the first consonant of the second syllable. So the first syllable closes off with at, and the second syllable begins with the tav and gives us the ta. So in order to solidify the Hebrew word, you'll need to draw a vertical line through the Dagesh forte. In this grammar, however, syllabification words with the Dagesh forte are rendered in the following manner. You can see it at, aleph, patak, tav. Then you got your vertical line. Then you got tav, comments, and hey, ata. So you got a little gray area, but personally, I like writing it twice, just letting them know that it is twice, in there. So whenever you do it phonetically, you always put it twice in there, the two T's in there, whenever we do the transliteration in here. So for example, we got chukah. So you would write this out as chet, kibbutz, and then a kof with a vertical line in between, and kof, kametz, hey. That's how you would put it. That way you got your two syllables. Hu, ha. This next one is yabasha. Yabasha. You start out with the yod, the patak, and the bait. Of course, you see you got that dagesh in that bait. That's not a lane because lanes can't follow a vocal vowel. So that has to be a dagesh forte. And usually the norm is whenever you see a short vowel like this, and then a dot in a Begakafat letter, that's going to be a dagesh forte. So you got Yav, Ba, Sha. 3 syllables. Yav, Ba, Sha. Consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. Consonant, vowel, consonant. Here. So Ya, Ba, Sha. U, Riya. You have U, the aleph with the shurik, the resh with the hirik and the yod, giving that re sound, uri, and then because there's a dagesh in that yod right there, that's telling you that it starts another syllable with a yod, comments hey, uriya. Next we have the tefillah, tefillah here, and you got the dagesh forte in this lamed. Remember, this lamed is not a Begakafat letter, so it's going to be double. The yod is non-Begakafat, that doubles. So the only ones you have to ask yourself a question on, if you see a dagesh in a Begakafet letter, is this a lane or is this a forte? You say, is this a Begakafet letter? If it's a Begakafet letter, then it could possibly be a lane, just a hardening and not a doubling. But the next question you ask yourself, is this letter, is there a vocal vowel preceding, and yours is usually a short vowel, preceding that consonant with the dagesh in it? If it is, then it's a dagesh forte. It's a doubling dagesh. And so I just want, it's pretty simple. You just ask yourself a couple of questions. That's all you have to do. Is it a Begakafat letter? If it is there a letter preceding it? If it's not a Begakafat letter, then it's going to be automatically a doubling dagesh. Easy as that. So basically, those are the three things. So far, things are relatively simple. There's, of course, I've told you about the difference in here. The dagesh in a Begakafet letter is a forte if preceded by a vowel, and we have a vowel. We have a patak preceding this tav here, so it's a doubling dagesh. That's rule number one. Rule number two: the dagesh in a Begakafet is a lane if it's preceded by a consonant. So we have mal ka. So we have a lamed here. Now this shava, and that's the reason why it's important to know your long and short vowels. Is that under a short vowel, these shavas will be non-vocal, and so that's going to produce this one here. That's going to be, so this cough is actually this dagesh is a lane in this cough because it is starting off a new syllable. It's not following a vocal vowel. Here, so a Begakafet letter starting to begin a word takes a dagesh lane unless the previous word ends in a vowel. So, I wouldn't really worry about that right now because you're not reading the scriptures yet. But usually in the scriptures, if there is in a sentence the preceding word ends in a vowel, what normally would take a dagesh lane will not take a dagesh lane. It will fall out. And it's mainly for phonetic value, for flow. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the Shava and syllabification. In section 2.7, you've learned that there are two types of Shavas in Hebrew. There is silent Shava and there's vocal Shava. Now, the silent Shava has a zero value and it's never pronunciated or transliterated, so you don't have to worry about that. The only thing you got to worry about is you got to know whether it's vocal or non-vocal. So the vocal Shava maintains a hurried pronunciation and sounds like the and amuse. It is transliterated either as an upside down E, as we studied before in lesson 2, or as a superscript. Okay? Now the vocal Shava will always occur in an open, unaccented syllable. And a silent Shava will always occur at the end of a closed syllable. That is after a short vowel. Either after a short vowel, which is an unaccented syllable, or an accented long vowel. But normally the short vowel is normally going to be majority of the precedent of when that occurs. You will occasionally get it when you have a long vowel that's accented in that syllable, but that's not normally the case. It's normally the short vowel is normally more frequent. Now we need to learn how to distinguish between a vocal Shava and a silent Shava. And there's two rules here. And just like there was just two rules in determining a open and closed syllable, for understanding syllables by themselves, there are two rules here. Basically, rule number one is that the Shava is silent if the previous vowel is short. So, like we said, if a shava follows a short vowel, a patak, a segol, a hirik, a kibbutz, then this is just a different way of saying that above that shava will always come at the end of a closed syllable. So if it's following a short vowel, then it's going to be non-vocal. It's going to be silent. Consider the shava in the word malka. As we had before, you have the patak, which is a short a vowel, followed by a shava under the lamed. Thus, that is stopping that syllable. It's closing that syllable also. It's malka, not malecha. It's malka, meaning queen. Now, it's immediately preceded by a short vowel, patak, under the mem, and it comes at the end of a closed syllable. So, consider the following applications of this first rule right here. When a shava is silent when immediately preceded by a short vowel, which is a, par o, you get the pei, the patak, and the resh here with the shava. That's two syllables, par o. The shava under the resh is preceded by a short vowel, therefore is silent. So that's how you know it's not pa re o, it's par o. Now, when you have rule number 2 or B of 1 is that the first of two side-by-side shavas within a word is silent. For example, the shava under the shin of mishpateh, you have mish, this shava that is following a short vowel, a hirik, that's going to be silent. That shava is going to be silent. A good rule is the first one, when the two side by sides, the first one does the walking, the second one does the talking. So the shava under the shin of the mishpateh is silent, and the shava under the pei is vocal. The word is broken into syllables as mish, pe, te. Mish, pe, te. So the first one does the walking, the second one does the talking. At the end of the word it is silent. So when you have a shava at the end of the word, as in katabt, it is silent. Both shavas in this form are silent. Both the one under the vet and the one on the top, they're silent here. The word is broken in syllables as ka-taft. Two syllables, ka-taft. This is the only exception to the above principle, is whenever you find a verb, this is a verb, ka-taft, that it's like that. Both of them are silent. Now, rule number 2 is the shava is vocal if not immediately preceded by a short vowel. That's to say, in all other circumstances, the shava is vocal. Let's consider the following applications of this second rule. Now, A, the initial shava is always vocal, as in beracha. So when you have a shava under the first consonant, the first syllable, it's always going to be vocal. Beracha. Now, B, the second, when you got two of them side by side within a word, like in mishpateh, the shava under the pei is vocal because preceded by the consonant shin. So you have a closed one here, and then this one begins a new syllable here. The first one does the walking, the second one does the talking here. C, a shava under any consonant with a doggish forte is vocal, as in hamelachim. So this is, it's got to be a double indigesh because it's in a non-begagavat letter here. I mean, this is a non-begagavat letter, so it's got to be a double indigesh. There's no other way it could be. So, so basically, when you're looking at this, the shava up under this mem is going to be, if you're transliterating, it's going to be H for the hey, A for the patak, M for the mem, because you got two mems, a doubling. That breaks another syllable, another mem with a shava, you got that superscript E. And then another syllable starts with lamed, and then a long A, Next syllable starts with a chaf, which is a soft chaf. It doesn't have the dagesh lane a in there. Because it is following a vowel. It can't follow a vowel if it's the dagesh lane, so it drops out, and you have the chim, hamelachim, in there. So the dagesh in the mem must be a forte because it's not a begakifat letter. Now, a shavah after an unaccented long vowel is vocal, as in kotevim. Okay? So when you have a shavah and it's on an unaccented long vowel, it's vocal. Following an unaccented long vowel, it's vocal. Kotevim. And kotevim. The shavah is preceded by the changeable long O and therefore is vocal. And so that's basically about it. It's just if it comes at the beginning of the word, the first letter on of a word, it's going to be vocal. If it's two side by side, the first one's going to be silent. The second one's going to be the first one's going to be silent. And the second one's going to be vocal. If it comes under a dagesh forte, the shavah comes under a consonant that has a dagesh forte, then it's going to be vocal because it's a non-begakifat letter. And let me see. And then if it's following a long vowel in an accented syllable, it's going to be vocal. So that's basically what you have for the rules of shavah right there. They're pretty simple to go through. They really don't make it any more difficult than it really is. It's not. You'll become accustomed to it as you go through and you utilize these rules and principles in here. And that's where a lot of people make that mistake. They make a mistake at that in the rules of Shavah. That's where they make it because they don't know the rules very well in there. And so even in modern Hebrew, there's been problems with the pronunciation by that. So anyhow, it is important to note that the gutturals cannot take a vocal shavah, but they can take a silent shavah. For example, when we have shamata, that means you listened. The shavah under the ayin comes at the end of a closed syllable. It's following a short vowel here, immediately preceded by a short vowel. So that's why it's there. And it's following a vowel, closing off that syllable. Remember, you have to start with a consonant, vowel, then the next syllable, consonant, vowel, consonant, and then consonant, vowel. This is 3 syllables. Sha, ma, ta. Okay, sha, ma, ta. Sorry about that. I got the accent on the wrong syllable. It's actually on this middle syllable here. Now, when dealing with shavah in Hebrew, remember to keep it simple. Shavah is silent if the previous vowel is short. In most other circumstances, it is vocal. So that's why I said it's important to know your short vowels as well as your long vowels, but even more so your short vowels. Now let's get into the understanding the comments and the comments of tuv. How can we make a distinction which is which here? Now we've already know that from section 2 that 2 vowels look exactly like. Comments, which is a changeable long A, ba, and a comments hatuf, which is a short O. How do you tell the difference? In general, the comments occurs much more frequently than the comments hatuf, so that's a good thing. You don't really have to worry so much about the comments hatuf. So when in doubt, defer to the comments. Since, however, this method is not error-free, the following rules are given here. Okay, and this is just some easy rules to remember here. The comments hatuf occurs only in a closed, unaccented syllable, like in the word wisdom, chachma. It's not chokma, it's chachma. And so what you have here is a comments hatuf in a closed syllable here. And so when you see a shava by there, that a lot of times can tell you, and you'll be used to the words too. Um, you'll get used to the types of words and know that this is a closed syllable versus an open syllable. The vowel under the comments is a comment so too, since it occurs in a closed syllable that is unaccented. The vowel under the mem is a comment since it occurs in a accented syllable. So you got a here an accented syllable here. Mem, comments, and a hey. So it distinguishes the two here from each other. This is an accented syllable. So it's basically occurs in an accented syllable here, and then it's unaccented. When you see it in an unaccented syllable, that is usually the case, but not always. So that's why we're going to learn the next one here. The comments is in also prefers an open pretonic syllable or a closed accented syllable. So, for example, in Devar, both vowels are comments. The first is an open syllable, da is an open syllable, and thus it's a pretonic syllable, and the second is in a closed accent syllable, var. So that's another way you can tell in there that they basically that's what a comments and the comments loves to be in those type of syllables, versus the comments atuv occurs only in closed unaccented syllables. Now, a lot of times we find the comments atuv in the adverb of kol. Actually, it's kal in this form, which means all of, each of, or every. Um, it comes in the lengthened form of kol, but this is kal. This is a short O right here. It does come in a lengthened vowel too. This is just reduced, all this is. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, a third thing that to help distinguish it, whether it's a commensative versus a comments, is a small symbol called a metheg. The word metheg and it comes from the Hebrew metheg, mem sagal, tav sagal, gimel. It means a bridle. It's a bridle like a bridle on a horse, and it gives direction of or stoppage. You pull on the bridle to stop the horse. Well, the method is a small vertical line that's placed beneath a consonant and to the left of a vowel, as in batim. Okay, you see you got the bait and the comments, and you got a method here. In this word, the method is the vertical line to the left of the comments under the bait. In terms of vowel identification, the method occurs with the comments and not with the comments atuv. So when you see that method, beside that vowel, you're gonna know that is a comments, not a comments atuv. The symbol vowel symbol under a bait could be taken as, let me see, houses. It could be taken in there, but the appearance of the method to the left of the vowel identifies it as a comment. So what he's saying here is that if that method wasn't there, you could say it could be either one. But since they are putting the method there, it's telling you that is not a commensative. And in the word hakma, however, the vowel under the chet is a commensative. It's a short O, and therefore is not marked with a method. The shava under the kaf is silent because it comes at the end of a closed syllable that contains a short vowel. So you'll be playing around, you'll be working around with that, but like I said, don't lose any sleep over that because it's not as frequently used as the comments. If you're in doubt, do it as a comments if you're not familiar with it. But you'll become familiar with the type of words that have the comments atuv versus the comments. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and finish out this session here. We'll start back the next section on this lesson 3.